Imagine this, a country that has survived two massive military strikes by the two largest armies in the Middle East. A country that, even weakened, exhausted, and after losing its supreme leader in an enemy attack, still has not said the final word. That is Iran in March 2026. While you are reading this, while we are watching this, Iran is in an active military conflict. On February 28 this year, the United States and Israel launched a joint military operation called Operation Epic Fury, with the goal of destroying Iran's nuclear and missile program. Iran responded, and that is where the story usually ends. But here's the question everyone should ask themselves. Why did there have to be two American bombing campaigns in less than a year? Why, after saying in June 2025 that Iran's nuclear capabilities had been completely eliminated, did they have to return just a few months later to strike the same targets again? The answer to that question lies in something the West often struggles to understand, but Iran demonstrates the number of explain why step by step. If you are new to the War Machine Files channel, this is the place where we break down geopolitics and military strategy without sensationalism and without politics. Only analysis, only facts. Subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell so you don't miss any new video, and let's begin. And to understand Iran, we must start with one fundamental mistake people make when evaluating the military strength of a country. We automatically look at the number of fighter jets, the number of warships, the military budget in dollars. And by those criteria, Iran does not look impressive. A budget of around $7.5 billion per year is tiny compared to the United States, whose military budget exceeds $800 billion. The Iranian Air Force has around 250 operational combat aircraft, many of which are outdated technology from before the Islamic Revolution of 1979. So conventionally, Iran appears to lose this comparison immediately. But Iran has not been planning a conventional war for a long time. Iran built a strategy known as asymmetric warfare, and in that field it is one of the greatest masters on the planet. Asymmetric warfare means you do not fight according to the enemy's rules. You do not confront an aircraft carrier directly. Instead, you threaten the Strait of Hormuz and the global oil supply. Instead of relying on air power, you build arsenals of cheap precision missiles and drones capable of overwhelming even the most expensive missile defense systems in the world. Instead of direct confrontation, you arm partners from Lebanon to Yemen who fight on your behalf while you observe and coordinate. This is not weakness. This is a survival strategy and a projection of power developed over decades and refined through wars and crises. And now we will go through each element of that strategy one by one. Let's begin with what is the heart of Iranian military doctrine, the missile program. Well, according to intelligence estimates from early 2026, Iran possesses more than 2,000 short and medium-range ballistic missiles. American General Kenneth McKenzie testified back in 2020 that Iran had more than 3,000 ballistic missiles. Even if you count the damage. Quickly it produces them. On March 1st this year, the Israeli military estimated that Iran was producing dozens of ballistic missiles every month. A day later, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Iran had been producing more than 100 missiles per month even before the June strikes. Even if that number was cut in half after the attacks, Iran would still be replenishing its stockpile every single week. Why does this matter? Because missile defense systems have limited capacity. Every Patriot or Arrow interceptor launched by Israel or the United States to destroy an Iranian missile costs many times more than the missile it is trying to intercept. Iran understands this perfectly. It is not competing with America in technology. It is competing in the economics of war. And in that calculation, Iran often wins. The Iranian missile program includes ballistic missiles capable of striking targets up to 2,000 kilometers away, which means the entire Middle East, large parts of Europe, and every American military base in the region. This makes Iran the country with the most diverse and numerous missile arsenal in the Middle East, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. And here is a detail that rarely reaches mainstream media. A large part of that arsenal is hidden deep underground. Iran has spent years building what analysts call missile cities, underground bases carved hundreds of meters into rock, protected from conventional bombing, with multiple launch points that can be activated within minutes. In March 2020, Iranian state television released footage of one such complex near the Gulf, showing ballistic and cruise missiles stored in underground tunnels stretching for kilometers. Even the most powerful military alliance on the planet cannot be certain it has destroyed what it cannot see. Ida, now we move to the second component that has redefined modern military power, Iran's drone program. If you followed the news in recent years, you have probably heard about the Shahed 136, the Iranian kamikaze drone that Russia used against Ukraine, and which changed the way war is fought both in Europe and the Middle East. But that is only the tip of the of precisely destroying hardened targets. Models such as the Quds Mohajer 10 can fly up to 2,000 kilometers with an endurance of 24 hours while carrying guided munitions. In addition, Iran also brought into operational service in 2025 the Iris Shahid Bagheri, Iran's first drone carrier. It is not an aircraft carrier in the traditional sense, but it is a vessel capable of launching drones, helicopters, and anti-ship missiles from hundreds of kilometers off the coast. This is a qualitative leap in Iranian naval power that passed almost unnoticed in Western media. What does all of this mean in practice? It means that Iran, even without F-35s or supercarriers, can saturate an opponent with hundreds and thousands of different strike systems, from cheap kamikaze drones that overload missile defense networks to precision ballistic missiles that come right behind them. This approach has already been demonstrated in real combat. On February 28 this year, Iran launched 137 missiles and 209 drones toward U.S. military facilities in the UAE. Some of them got through. Operations at Abu Dhabi Airport, one of the busiest air hubs in the world, were disrupted. Smoke was seen rising near Burj Al Arab. Even with active missile defense from the United States, Israel, and Gulf states, Iran still managed to break through. And that tells us something about capabilities that must not be underestimated. The third pillar of Iranian military power is what analysts call the axis of resistance, a network of allies and proxy groups that extends Iranian power far beyond the borders of the Islamic Republic itself. Imagine it like a spider web. Tehran stands at the center. At each point of the web, there is an organization. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthi movement in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, the IRGC. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is the thread that holds all of this together through its specialist unit, the Quds Force. This network gives Iran something strategic. Whenever someone response does not have none of those fronts is an Iranian war. Just look at what happened immediately after the strike on February 28th. Hezbollah in Lebanon moved rocket launchers southward and declared its readiness to respond. Iraqi Shiite militias launched drone attacks on American military targets in Baghdad and Erbil. Meanwhile, the Houthi movement in Yemen threatened attacks on shipping lanes in the Red Sea. Financially, this entire network has also been supported for years. According to estimates, Iran has provided around $100 million annually to Hamas alone. Hezbollah, in its strongest years, received as much as $700 million per year. The Houthis received advanced anti-ship missiles and drones even during the most difficult blockade periods. Yes, this network has suffered heavy losses. Hezbollah has been weakened, Assad has fallen, Hamas has been devastated in Gaza. But the Houthis still control large parts of Yemen which border Saudi Arabia, and has direct access to the Red Sea and maritime trade routes. Analysts from The Hill describe the situation perhaps most accurately. Iran's proxy network today is weaker than it has been at any time in the past decade, but at the same time it is more volatile, more fragmented and more prone to escalation that could transform a limited strike into a regional war. Less control over proxy groups does not necessarily mean less danger. Sometimes it means more, because no one can predict what a group like the Houthis might do next. Now we must talk about the nuclear program. This is the issue that triggered the entire conflict. In June 2025, the United States and Israel bombed Iranian nuclear facilities. President Trump declared that Iran's uranium enrichment capability had been completely and totally destroyed. But only a few months later, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that Iran had resumed nuclear-related activities. In February 2026, the same allies had to conduct another major joint strike. What happened? How did a supposedly destroyed program return in less than a year? The answer lies in geography and secrecy. Iran has multiple nuclear-related sites, many of which were unknown to Western redundant supply chains and scientific infrastructure that allows parts of the program to continue even after key installations are damaged. This is the essence of Iranian strategy. Not invulnerability, but resilience. If you destroy one facility, another one continues the work. If you eliminate one commander, another one takes his place. If you intercept one wave of missiles, another wave is already on the way. Now let's return to the central question of this video. Why is Iran more dangerous than most people assume? The answer lies in the combination of all these factors. Missiles that can reach thousands of kilometers, drones that cost a fraction of traditional weapons but can overwhelm expensive defense systems, underground bases that protect critical assets, and a regional network capable of opening multiple fronts simultaneously. But there is also something deeper. Iran has spent decades preparing psychologically for confrontation with much stronger adversaries. Since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Iranian political and military doctrine has been built around the expectation of external pressure and conflict. This long preparation created a society and a military structure that are accustomed to sanctions, isolation, and constant threat. When pressure increases, the system does not collapse immediately because it was designed to operate under pressure from the very beginning. And that is why the events of February and March 2026 shocked many observers, but did not lead to immediate collapse inside Iran. The state absorbed the shock, reorganized, and responded. That does not mean Iran is winning. It does not mean Iran is stronger than its adversaries in conventional terms, but it means something extremely important in strategic competition. Iran cannot be easily neutralized, and that alone makes it one of the most complicated military challenges in the modern world. For military planners, this creates a dilemma. A country that cannot be quickly defeated becomes extremely risky to attack because every operation can escalate beyond its original objectives. When airstrikes may damage infrastructure, but they rarely change the political will of a nation. And enormous casualties. Yet the state survived and adapted. That historical memory still shapes Iranian strategic thinking today. Leaders in Tehran often speak about patience as a strategic weapon. Instead of seeking quick victories, they aim to outlast opponents who may have superior technology but less political endurance for long conflicts. This philosophy is visible in almost every aspect of Iran's military posture. Rather than building a navy capable of confronting American aircraft carriers directly, Iran invests in swarms of small, fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, and naval mines that can threaten shipping lanes and complicate naval operations in the Persian Gulf. Instead of building an air force comparable to Western standards, Iran prioritizes missiles and drones that can reach regional targets without requiring expensive fighter aircraft. This is not a strategy designed to dominate the world. It is a strategy designed to make aggression against Iran extremely costly and uncertain. And uncertainty is something every military commander tries to avoid. Because once uncertainty dominates the battlefield, even the most powerful army must reconsider its plans. This brings us back to the present moment. The strikes of February 2026 and the retaliation that followed demonstrate how quickly tensions around Iran can escalate into a broader regional confrontation. Missile launches, drone attacks, naval movements, and cyber operations are all happening within the same strategic environment. Each action creates the possibility of further escalation, and each escalation increases the risk that a limited conflict could transform into something far larger than anyone initially intended. In the end, the real lesson is not that Iran is invincible. No country is. The real lesson is that military power in the modern world is no longer measured only by aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, or nuclear weapons. It is measured by resilience, by adaptability, and by the ability to survive pressure long enough to force your opponent into difficult decisions. Iran has built its entire defense structure around that idea. Every missile base, every drone, every region is part of a system of complicated calculations. That is not that any confrontation with Iran carries risks that extend far beyond the battlefield. Economic disruption, regional instability, and global political consequences are all part of the equation. This is why even the most powerful countries in the world approach the Iranian question with extreme caution. Military action might achieve certain tactical objectives, but the strategic consequences could last for decades. And that is the final point of this analysis. Understanding Iran requires looking beyond headlines and beyond simple comparisons of military budgets. It requires understanding how strategy, geography, history, and ideology combine to shape the behavior of a state that has learned to survive under constant pressure. Whether the current tensions will escalate further or eventually calm down remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: Iran will remain one of the most important strategic actors in the Middle East, and any future conflict in the region will inevitably involve its influence in one form or another. What do you think about Iran's military strategy? Is it a smart way for a weaker power to challenge stronger adversaries, or does it only increase the risk of a much larger war? Write your opinion in the comments, and if you found this analysis useful, subscribe to the channel and share the video with someone interested in global military affairs.